Here, I've got an otherwise empty scene with the RADiCAL scene connector prefab brought into the scene. Within the inspector, put your room ID and account key into the respective fields at the top of the interface. A password is only needed if the owner of the live room has opted for a password for security reasons during the setup process. As there isn't one, let's leave it. Press the Fetch Players button below to generate your list of players. For now, leave the player ID slots empty, and instead it will generate a default RADiCAL model and rig to take their place. As this is a multiplayer sim, 3 player slots will generate. A single player sim will only generate 1 player ID. For live rooms, the number of players presently in the room will be generated. When you enter play mode, the simulation will bring over the data and start to play within the engine. If you wish to move or change the transforms of the player within the scene, selecting the mesh directly won't move them. Instead, you should select the route of the player through the hierarchy and move that instead. Below, you will see a script called RADiCAL Player Manager. A game object is attached by default known as RADiCAL Character. It is crucial that you do not touch or change this game object, as it will cause runtime error warnings. If you have changed this and wish to return, selecting the 3 pips to the side and selecting Reset will not change the prefab to default, as it will change the game object to an empty. Instead, under Assets, RADiCAL SDK, Prefabs, drag the RADiCAL character into the field and the issue will resolve. From the same scene, import your custom character by selecting negative space within the content browser, right-click, Import New Asset. Select the FBX character you wish to import as your character. Once imported, select it and set the animation type as humanoid and apply. Select the arrow on the custom character, select the avatar, and then press Configure Avatar button. This will allow Unity to regenerate the joints if you encounter issues with missing joints. Your character should be ready for receiving animation data from RADiCAL Cloud. Now, when selecting the RADiCAL server connector, set the player ID as your elected character, and then when you press play, the animation data will be connected to your character. If you are wanting to stage the scene with your custom character, simply bring the character into the scene and connect it as a player via the RADiCAL server connector. You are free to move the player around to whichever position you require, and then when you enter play mode, the RADiCAL live data will play from that position of your character. However, if you notice that once you start the scene, the characters are slightly offset, you will need to reset the driver prefab transformations. To do this, navigate through Assets, RADiCAL SDK, Prefabs, and RADiCAL Character, and then zero out their transformations. And then, when you start the scene, they will appear in the right places.